Hi everyone, welcome back to Tech Booth. Today we're looking at these neat little transceivers from Yongnuo, the RF603, and we are going to be triggering 3 different speed lights with these bad boys. So stick around. So I have here a really old speed light, the ProMaster FTD 5600 from the days of film cameras, and I got this from a media company that was getting rid of them for really cheap, but it's still functional. I wanted to see how I can incorporate this into my photography. Fortunately, this particular model is a universal flash, and what that means is it has this single pin at the bottom, which means it will work on any camera that has a single pin. For example, the camera we're going to be using today to demonstrate is the Canon 70D. It's now a dated DSLR camera, but for the purposes of this demonstration, it will work fine. And if you look right there, you'll see the hot shoe has a single big pin in the center, which means when this lines up with this pin, this camera is able to trigger this flash. So if I place this flash right here, let's see, lock that off, and if I take a photo, the flash goes off. I don't know if you saw that. Sometimes video frames miss the flash, but it works just fine on top of my camera. So I wanted to explore how I can add functionality to this really old flash and try and get it to be wirelessly triggered. And the solution to that is very simple. You have these transceivers that you can get for really cheap. They come in pairs, and they're called transceivers because they can both receive a signal and send a signal. So if you notice at the top there's a hot shoe, and at the bottom there's the male side of the hot shoe. So for you to use this, very simple. With this particular set, this is the RF603C. They are meant to work on the Canon camera, hence the C part of it. So if you look at the pins at the bottom and you look at the pins here, they match. But for this demonstration, all we're interested in is triggering the flash, not controlling it at this time. So all I need to do is to stick one of these on top of my Canon camera like this. It has no locking pin, but the friction kind of holds it there. And then you can switch that on, and you see there's a green light that shows that it's on. So now I take the second transceiver and switch it on, because one of the design flaws of this particular transceiver, the 603C, the old version, they now have a newer one, the 603C2, but for this one you have to switch it on first, because accessing that switch once it's on is next to impossible. So I've switched that on. I stick it on there. Now I have a transceiver on my camera that's acting as a transmitter, and another transceiver on my flashlight acting as a receiver. And when I press the shutter and take a picture, the flash goes off. So I am now able to do wireless triggering of a really old ProMaster flash using these triggers. And you can do this for any flash that is universal, or a flash that is designed specifically for your camera. Now when you're buying these transceivers, you might want to make sure that you buy ones that work for your camera. In this particular case, all I wanted was the triggering. I didn't want any control from within the camera. So all we're interested in is that center pin. But if you want to be able to control some things and send signals from your camera to your flash, if your flash is designed to work with your camera, then you can send more signals through your transceiver if you buy the correct transceiver that works with your camera and the flash unit. One thing to note is that these transceivers work on particular channels. When they come in the box, they're already paired, so they work together right out of the box. But sometimes you want to go in. If you go inside the battery compartment and take out the batteries, you will see switches, DIN switches, those four white switches at the bottom there. Those are the switches that you use to change the channel. Like I said, out of the box, these are already matched, but if for some reason they are not working together, you need to just check that these switches are looking the same. So let's add another speed light to this system. Now remember, these are Yongnuo transmitters. That means they will work with Yongnuo wireless flashes. So I have here a really popular budget flash, the YN564, and when I switch it on, I can actually trigger this flash wirelessly without anything attached to it, just like that. So this transceiver is triggering this flash wirelessly because this flash is already wireless enabled. It has a receiver and a transmitter built into the flash. So now we have a two flash setup. I have the Yongnuo right there, and I also have this old flash, and both of them are being triggered. So I've made this wireless, I've made the old flash wireless, and I'm also triggering this other flash as well. The thing about these transceivers though is that you are not able to control the flash settings through the transceiver, at least in the setup that I have here. So let's add something else into the mix, a third flash that's actually a different model altogether. I have this Godox TT600, another really popular flash. If I wanted to have a third one to control like that, I can go ahead and buy another pair of these or another one of these and add it to the bottom of this flash. Or I can do something else, and that is, if you have the budget, you can buy this manual flash controller. This is the Yongnuo YN560TX. I can take the transceiver from my camera, attach it to the bottom of this Godox flash, just like we did with the other old flash unit. Switch that on. And this unit just has to be in the manual mode, the same mode that you would use when you're attaching it on top of your camera. It doesn't have to be in a wireless mode. And then on top of my Canon 70D, I'm going to attach this. And then all I need to do is to make sure that this is communicating on the same channel as the other flash units. And if you want to check that, you can see on the controller you have your channel setting, and next to the channel setting you have your pin or DIN switch settings, what they look like. So those buttons there that simulate the DIN switches inside of your transceivers should be in the same position. So when you move these channels, you can see these DIN switches moving, and you want to make sure they're in the same position as those on the transceivers. That way they are able to communicate on the same channel. And I've already set that on here, so everything is on channel 1, so they should be able to talk to each other. So what is happening now is I have this controller. It is sending a signal from my camera, and that signal is going to the two transceivers, so on these two flashes. But because this is a Yongnuo transmitter, it's also sending a wireless radio signal to this Yongnuo transmitter. And because this is a Yongnuo flash controller, it can control this Yongnuo 564 wirelessly without anything attached to it. So now I have 3 flash units connected, and you might not be able to see everything, but if you look in the back there, when I take a photo, all 3 of them go off. So now I have 3 units that I can use in a 3 light setup in my photography. The nice thing about using this though is that now I'm able to control at least one of the units, this Yangnuo. If you look at the settings there, whenever I change the settings on my transmitter, those same settings are changed. You can see the blue light showing that it's getting a signal, and I'm able to control the power of the flash using this controller. So now with this setup, I have one main flash that I can control the power to using my transmitter, and then I have these 2 units that I can set maybe as backlight or an effects light in the background. And for those units I have to set the power manually, but I still have access to all 3, and I can use that in a 3 light setup in my photography. So using these really inexpensive triggers allows you to do several things. One is, like I've showed you, you can use these really cheap but old flash units that are still working, that are universal with your system. If you don't mind the inconvenience of not having control on the flash using your camera, you have to go and actually adjust the power levels on the flash itself. The second thing is you can use many different types of flash units, even the modern ones. So if you're a Canon shooter and you have friends who use Nikon, for example, you can actually borrow their flash units as long as they have that single pin at the bottom, and then you attach these transmitters. You're able to mix and match flash units and borrow from your friends. It also allows you to buy budget flashes that you can use as backups to your main flash units, and a lot of professionals will have these in their bags just in case their main system fails, and they can quickly use these to trigger their flashes. It's a bit inconvenient because you can't control the unit from your camera, and you can't really control it from the flash controllers, but things can go wrong on your shoot, and you might have to resort to just having these little inexpensive units to finish your shoot. That's it from me on Tech Booth. See you next time.